जी।
ठीक है, अपने को माइल हॉलैंड वाला भी करना ही है क्योंकि आप लोगों ने मेरा प्रपोजल रिजेक्ट कर दिया। तो ठीक है।
और इंग्लैंड एम्पायर भी बचा है ना, दैट आई नॉट सीन
इनलैंड एम्पायर इज द
सीजन।
लास्ट फिल्म ही मेड, सो
Is it? I thought that was, oh no, that's after my one.
yeah.
I thought that was before.
Inland Empire is like a basically his version, like that and Twin Peaks: The Return are like similar levels of just no one has control over David Lynch. Let's just let him loose, sort of thing, which is very fun to witness. So, anyways, yeah,
Okay.
maybe this part more than anything else can go in the beginning of the episode. I don't know how much time has passed since we recorded last on Lynch, though.
Hmm.
Do you have an idea about that? I
I
think
don't
it's
know, yeah. What is the last film that we did? That
we
was
did Lost
Lost
Highway.
Highway.
Lost Highway. Yeah. Let
That
me
would have
check.
been a good couple of months, yeah.
More than a couple of months. Like well, of course, more than a couple of months, but like it's. I'm checking. I'm checking. We released our Lost Highway episode in October last year.
Oh
So.
my God. I was thinking end like November, December or something.
Nah, it
God,
was
it's
October last year.
oh God.
Yeah. And I think that
Uh,
one was recorded, that one was released in the week it was recorded. So it wasn't like a
yeah.
delay in that sense. So it's been how many months? November, December, Jan, Feb, March, April, ho gaya, right?
Uh,
6 months, half a year essentially. Amazing. Anyways, you can start. This will remain in the podcast, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
sure, sure. Hello, 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 and welcome to our continuation of the David Lynch retrospective that we've been doing here at Queen is Dead. And as you've just noted, we are 6 months late to this episode.
We
But we are
apologize
in.
to people, to the 20 people who've been consistently listening to these. My idea was to finish this last year, but stuff happens. But the idea is to finish it now. So, we will finish it by this year end. And we will try
By
and
this year end.
yeah, because I'm accounting for the fact that we've not discussed Twin Peaks, and
Yeah.
ideally we should be discussing it if we are doing a David Lynch thing, but we can't be. I am 100% sure that we won't be discussing it in the next 3 months. So that's why I've said till the year end, because if there is some time, then the discussion will happen. Otherwise, we'll have to find some due time for Twin Peaks. But the films we are all discussing, so you know that.
Yeah, so we are in the home stretch as of now.
Hmm.
This is two more films at least before we get to Twin Peaks left after this.
Yeah.
But for today, we are going to be talking about what David Lynch in Room to Dream calls his most experimental film. That is The Straight Story, which very famously was distributed by the Walt Disney Company and was his only film to get a G rating. So
Yes.
it's out of the box in every imaginable way to his
It is experimental
filmography.
in that sense, yes.
I love a lightning storm.
Me too, Dad. A cloud. I had a stroke.
Rose, darling, I'm gonna go back on the road. And I've got to make this trip on my own. I've got to go see Lyle.
Indeed, and it really does feel like a serious departure when you look at his other films, which is really funny because it's just it's a very normal film in other regards, in at least
Yeah.
or very conventional films
Hmm.
when it comes to his other work. The film, I'll just introduce it a little bit. The film was released in 1999. It debuted at Cannes, where it was nominated, but famously, the head of the jury that year was David Cronenberg, and the film did not speak to his sensibilities, so it didn't win anything. It was directed by Lynch. It was written by Mary Sweeney, his partner at the time, and John Roach. Famously, this is the only film Lynch has ever made that he hasn't written. It stars Richard Farnsworth in his last performance on screen, Sissy Spacek, and Harry Dean Stanton. The cinematographer was Freddie Francis. It was also edited by Sweeney, music by Angelo Badalamenti, and the production design was by
Jack Fisk.
John Jack Fisk. who is a close collaborator and friend of David Lynch, as well as Sissy Spacek's husband.
Yes.
The book Room to Dream, the chapter that talks about the film is titled "A Slice of Something,"
Mhm.
and it's a very short chapter that essentially summarizes the straight story as like a family affair. It had a really small, budget, and it was done really like heartily. And since they were following the film is about this gentleman named Alvin Strait. So it's the adaptation of a real incident that took place, who traveled 240 miles from Lawrence, Iowa to Mount Zion, Wisconsin. This was a man in his early 80s, I think, who found out that his brother had had a stroke. So he traveled this distance, but because he was too old and didn't have good eyesight, he couldn't hold a driving license. So he ended up driving a lawnmower, which had a top speed of 5 miles an hour.
Mm.
And it took him 6 weeks, the journey from Iowa to Wisconsin. And it was a sort of, really lovely time for all of them. Sweeney had read the story in, I think, the New York Times or someplace, and
Okay.
she was very fond of it, and she wrote the screenplay for it and showed it to Lynch, who was only supposed to give notes, but he instantly fell in love with it. They were apparently spending time in Wisconsin at that time, and so he had grown very fond of the people there, and so
Sure.
he just connected with it and decided that he would direct it. His Fisk and Spacek had been really good friends with him, so they had been wanting to work on a project together for a long time.
Mm.
And so Spacek ended up getting cast as Alvin Strait's daughter Rose in the film. They opted for Farnsworth, which is because he was, they thought of him and he was the perfect fit for the role, but he was suffering from cancer at the time, and so he sort of pulled out. Which is when they asked John Hurt, who plays John Merrick in The Elephant Man, to swap in, and in the end, Farnsworth ended up saying yes to the role, so he was cast. And it was so since they were going along the same route as in the original incident, they shot the film in chronological order and edited it. I think they had a setup in Wisconsin itself, so it was kind of a really, happy sort of production. Went to Cannes, didn't end up doing much. It's that kind of small anecdotes only about how it
The
was just like
type
a
of
really fun
film that
time.
everyone forgets.
And yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
And
It's
is
probably the
very
least
on
discussed.
very almost notably said to be the non-Lynch film, right?
That's true, but also it's, I don't understand because SpaceX says she's got a quote in the book which,
Mm.
people are like, this is the least Lynch film, but
Mm.
if you know Lynch, then this is a very Lynch
It
film.
is. You
So
can tell by the
in
first sequence, especially, that
in
it's a very Lynch film.
no, it's very, very Blue Velvet adjacent in its opening.
Yeah.
And the fact that
When it opened, I was like, I was told this was different to a Lynch film, and it has like it literally opens with like a picket fenced sort of house, and with like a very eerie sense of mood and everything. Like there's no, the brightness is not like comforting or anything. It's fairly discerning, and like it's very very tense, oddly. So, anyways, yeah, go ahead. You were saying.
so that's basically the gist of how it sort of comes about, and it is definitely the least discussed Lynch film.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people do dismiss it because it lacks the quote, signature autorial stamp that people expect from
The
Lynch. Not to
darkness
say that
of
it is
Lynch.
not
It lacks
sure that
the overwhelming darkness of some Lynch. Most of
yeah,
Lynch.
the darkness, the kind of like sexual imagery
Yeah.
that expected from him, just the surrealism, anything of that kind is
I think there are
not present in
touches
the film.
of the not surreal, but of something more than just the journey, in the sense that there
Yeah,
is an interaction with the landscape in a way which is different to his other work, but there is an interaction with it. I feel it's closer almost in spirit to Malik, if anything,
yeah,
in its so again I mentioned Malik, of course, but it's closer in spirit to the way it explores the landscapes of it. But I feel it almost at times feels like uh, one of the most optimistic looks at America, which I know it's not the correct time to sort of, say all this, but like
yeah.
it does really feel like a utopian sort of vision of it, which is, I think, there in a lot of his films, but I think it's always corrupted and corroded. Here, I think the corrodedness is there, but it's
Yeah.
minimized to like, 5% as opposed to the 56% it occupies otherwise, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, true. But also, I think one of the words that keeps constantly being brought up, and I read a couple of articles on the film as well, is that to a lot of people, it reads like an elegy. And I
Yeah.
think that's the kind of, maybe that's the darkness that sort of
Hmm.
Lynch injects it also with. I mean, uh, there's a scene that I adore, and it's also noted by Lynch as one of his
Hmm.
favorites, is when there's an interaction with Straight and an older man in a bar. And it kind of
Yes.
reminded me of a scene in Wild at Heart
Okay.
when uh, Laura Dern's character is recounting the story of an accident or something
Hmm.
to Nicolas Cage's character, and it cuts back to this flashback of or this thing of the car rolling down like a hill, and the audio of that sort of leaking into
Hmm.
back and forth into her description. And there's something reminiscent, obviously not as flashy in the film as well, but there is that kind of, and it's really funny because the chapter ends with this 2 paragraph rant
Hmm.
about by Lynch about like how GMO has taken over like the corn industry, and small farms no longer exist, and big corporations have taken up over anything. So that kind of slightly bitter, almost nostalgia, I think, is definitely
Hmm.
embedded in the film. But yeah, it's that kind of rootsy Americana that holds that value for, rural life and community and all that. So that optimism is definitely almost uncharacteristically there, but
Yeah.
it's not that it's lacking in that kind of
Oh yeah, it's
undertone and offness. Yeah.
laced in the idea of mortality. Like all this optimism is, I mean, if I'm being cynical, you can say that it's a projection of the film of being something which is optimistic in the sense that it's trying to be optimistic about the fact that this guy is going to die, and that's his realization. And in
Yeah.
that process, he adopts a sort of more optimistic point of view of the remaining time he has. But
Yeah.
the idea is that the optimism will always be, it's always under, what's it called, like it's the underpinning of that optimism is to do with the fact that he realizes about his mortality, and the fact that he is moving at a speed in which everyone or everything is passing him by. That's the whole idea. The visual metaphor of the film is very evident, and it repeats itself because, yeah, that's what the film is about. It's about him moving at his own speed and the world passing him by, and him then looking at it in whatever way he wants it to look, and then continuing because that's the way he decided to go about his life. So
Yeah.
if you remove the slight whimsy and the slight optimism to it, which the film has a lot of dark moments which I think are very moving and very touching. The nighttime scenes have a not if not dread, at least they have a sort of disconcerting tension to them. There's one particular, sorry, I've just gone into the film like in general because I don't know if there's a spoiler thing to do here. We
No,
are
no,
talking
please
in
go ahead.
spoilers, but like it's literally a man going from one location to another, to meet his brother. That's about it. And then the people he meets in the middle, sort of like that. It's basically, if Forrest Gump wasn't annoying, because I know a lot of people have said that this is Forrest Gump on tractor, on like a whatever it is called, and just
Lawnmower.
like lawnmower, and I'm just like, well, this isn't cringy or it's not mockish, so it's better. Sorry for Forrest Gump fans, but no, I think the big thing I think in this is as I was talking about the one shot which is more characteristically Lynch in a way where I was like, where did this shot come from? Is when he, I think the first attempt he makes at going there and returns, and then he sits with
Hmm.
Rose, and they're sitting beneath the stars, but also like next to this factory, like a silo, like, and it's like it all captures the churning of the factory noise, and industrial soundscape comes in. I was like, this is that Lynch movie, or what Lynch movie am I in? Like, it's got a couple of those, and the incident with the
Hmm.
dear woman, which is very like, I think that's the only moment which is actually a little too distractingly in a sort of absurd Lynch. Like, I think it's a little too much. Like, that's the only
True.
moment I would say is a little too much. But yes, those are moments you can pick out and be like, oh, like if you want to highlight that this is made by Lynch, you'd pick out those moments, right? You'll sort of like
Yeah.
circle in those. But the thing is, and the first sequence, which is like I'm just like it, like the camera zooming in slightly on the house, and like I'm like, what is this? Like I'm like, I wasn't primed about this. I thought it was supposed to be like nice and sweet. But anyways, um, so those are moments you pick out. But I think the big thing about his sensibility is that the innocence has always been there, right?
Yeah.
It's always contended with the darkness, and I
No,
think
it's that naive like when we were talking about Blue Velvet, it's as well, right? It's that
yeah,
Laura Dern's naive
yeah,
optimism when she talks about the birds or something, I forget, in that
yeah,
scene.
the Robins,
The Robins with Kyle MacLachlan. It's
yeah,
just it's that naive optimism sort of given forefront.
yeah,
It's not that the underbelly of it, or just it's not even it's almost like it's an inevitability of entropy, decay,
yeah,
etc., etc., that is part mortality, as you call it.
yeah,
That's part of it all, but it's that naive optimism is allowed a moment to just sort of breathe in its own space.
yeah.
And
Because
you were
so
saying,
there,
yeah,
there are lots of instances in this where I was like, I'm sure there'll be something about someone making fun of CC SpaceX speech impediment,
yeah,
I think, right? And I was like, but that never happens, and then, but there's so much like her character, like to me in the beginning was like, does she need to have this affliction? Like I was just like almost
yeah,
thinking that would the character not be fine even if it didn't have that quote unquote quirk? Uh, and then it's just there's this one brief sort of flash back of her looking out of this window at a child playing this, which is sort of explained and like not explained actually. He just casually told in a conversation by his father that she lost her child. Is it?
she
And
lost the government took them away because they thought
yes,
she was incapable of parenting
of
them.
parenting, and so I
Yeah,
think the film has its way of making sure that it never ever tips into mawkishness, which I think would have, like, to me it would have been a deal breaker, and which is why I've always been reticent about watching this, because everyone was like, Forrest Lynch makes Forrest Gump. I'm like, ew, like why would he make it? Like he's too, sorry, but like he's too good a filmmaker to make that thing. So I, like, people mentioned it, I was like, why should I watch this? I want to have like a good memory of Lynch. I don't want to like spoil it. I don't like, since you figured it out, I guess I don't like Forrest Gump. But
no, I was just about to say this is turned from the straight story episode to the Forrest
no,
Gump
because
shade
no, but
episode.
because I think this is because for the longest time I held off watching this because it was described as that, and when I
Yeah,
watched it, I was like, sure, but like it's got none of the issues I have with Forrest Gump, and it has none of the sort of histrionics that I associate with Forrest Gump. This is like absolutely like someone, the stoicism shines more than anything, and in that sense, I mean, we'll talk about the ending because it's so terrifically executed in the way it communicates the bond between two men, especially I think in such a scenario, and just its belief in optimism never feels false to me, and it
yeah.
never feels like it's, you know side footing all the difficult questions and difficult things. It knows its character's singular determination is the only thing he has, and if that's the only thing he has, then we go along with it in that sort of sense. So that's how I
No,
sort of come to terms
it's
with it.
sentimental without being sappy is I think
Yep.
what makes it
Which, I
work.
mean, we just saw, we discussed, not, yeah, I have not discussed it, but I guess I will bitch about it here. We saw Project Hail Mary, which is like, the sort of, you know what you, yeah.
Indeed. No, but it's really interesting how and especially how the ending comes about, because
Yeah.
that anticipation is it really gets to you. And there's a moment so the only spoiler you could possibly give the film is you never know if by the time Alvin Strait gets to his brother, if his brother is actually alive or well, or if they'd be able
Yes.
to meet. So there's this moment where he almost has an accident because
Mm.
his lawnmower gives out, and he lands up in front of this like really sweet family's place, and he sort of has this moment where he asks, how long has it been? And there's
Mm.
these small moments where you get an idea of like okay, it's been that long. Okay,
Yeah.
and the film really doesn't linger on it. It doesn't, like, make you, it puts that anticipation in you of, will it happen, will it not, without ever needing to hammer it home, just by the kind of, that, like I said, that determination in him that, it doesn't matter, I
Yeah.
will make it. And which also leads into the interaction he has with a priest
Yeah.
later on, which again is this really, really emotional moment where he, it's also how Lynch works in the story itself, right? Like, you don't know why he's setting off at the beginning. Like, you just
Hmm.
know someone hasn't done well. You don't know who this person is.
Hmm.
And it's through these micro interactions that are just incredibly sweet
Yeah.
that you get these bits and pieces, and you're able to piece together the why and the how of what's happening.
Hmm.
That's just, it's I think Lynch at his, it's the mastery of his filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
It's
At his best
obviously,
in its in his unflashiness, actually. It's
absolutely,
yeah,
yeah,
because
I
I
mean, it
think
not,
he's always been a stylish surrealist. He's not been
yeah,
a subtle surrealist, right?
yeah,
There's that distinction always to draw with him. I think this isn't surreal at all, I think, but
mm,
it is dreamlike in its melancholy. Like it's got, again, which is why I think the Malik thing sticks a little bit more to me than other ways. But the elegy part of it and everything does feel more poetic than your average film like this would. Like, the narrative is thin, right? There is not much in the narrative. It's about the things within that narrative that happen. And the first sequence, the first conversation he has, I was just floored. I was like, with the girl called Crystal, who's like a runaway and who's pregnant, I think, or is deciding to have a child, or like to keep her child, which she had with a boyfriend, and then it has run away from her family, or
yeah,
something like that, I think. And just like to watch the way a conversation, again, the issue is maybe nowadays what will happen is you will have to speed up the conversation, because people don't like to see people converse in a sort of realistic manner, or sorry, again, or you'll throw quips in, so that you can like beat the audience in with, like, a joke machine. Anyways, sorry, okay, Chris, don't give me that look of why are you, but it's true. You know this, it's true.
I'm
uh,
not disagreeing with you, sir, go on.
but it's true. But see, the thing is, if you're the templatiness of it is a lot to do with a lot of American films of that ilk. My
Yeah,
point is that the difference is, just see the conversation and how it's filmed between Alvin and Crystal. The amount of focus, and I think Lynch doubles down on all these things later in like Twin Peaks, and like I think even in Inland Empire. The number of the stretches of quiet between those two is magnificent, and the way, which is what gives the meaning of the conversation, and the which is what gives the conversation meaning and weight. Like, when they
yeah,
say stuff, it feels like they really mean what they're saying, and in a way which isn't preachy, or it's what people talk about and how they talk about it in a very casual way. It's not lecturing, it's not sermonizing, it's nothing. It's just
yeah,
very straight, pun not intended, forward in that sense, but in a very, very effective way. You don't need to varnish it with other touches. Like, it's simple, and I think he gets simple really well here.
yeah.
Um,
No, I think that's the thing, right? I mean, calling it undingian is also that the thing about his surrealism and all of that is, you understand that those are things that he puts in, not to compensate for a craft, but because he can also do that, right?
yes.
It's the fact, I think this is one of those, mass this is one of the displays of the fact that he understands his craft to its most bare minimum. Like, you can
Yeah.
strip it down of all its bells and whistles, and it's still just a wonderful, wonderful work.
Yeah.
And for me, for me, it's those other two conversations that stand out most to me. One is, I think, one of the, like, very few sections that you have where it's not focused on Alvin is the the guy who helps repair his lawnmower. He's like talking to
Mm.
his wife. And again, it's
Yes.
a really simple conversation. They're in their kitchen, and
Mm.
he's sort of, talking about how difficult of a time Alvin is having. And his wife
Mm.
is like, "You're a good man, just help him out." And
Yeah.
it's these really, really small, and it again very natural conversations which,
Yeah, again, one
take
of the
space.
without, and they don't even have the dear woman has that dear woman quirk, but here there's not even that. Like it's even simpler, and I was just like, I've not seen a Lynch film which is like really done away with all the quirks. Also, it's just
Yeah.
very very real in a way, which is kind of very moving. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting
No,
that way.
it's populated also with really interesting details. Like again, to me, like a great moment that shows like stoicism is when he refuses to get inside the person's house to make a phone
Yes.
call. Like he repeatedly is asked by this man, you can
Mm.
come inside, you can make a phone call comfortably.
Mm.
But he says no, and that space and that
Yeah,
this
you're
thing
a
is
very
really
kind
important
man
to him.
talking to a very stubborn man, something like that,
Man,
right?
something like
Uh,
that. And even when he drops the phone off, he puts like a couple of dollar bills under it because he's like, no, if I've cost you some money to make this phone call, I want you to have
yeah.
that back. And
Oh, there's that
it doesn't do
wonderful
anything though.
conversation
Yeah.
even with the brothers, the Farrelly brothers. I think this is like where he negotiates with them. Uh,
Yeah. Again, that's why I was telling Dhruv that I was thinking of Vishal Bharadwaj's Blue Umbrella when I was watching this, and the twins are such a VP
yeah,
staple.
true. Yeah, you've been on a Vishal Bhardwaj binge, so that's the other
I
reason
have
why
been.
you've been totally engulfed by that element of it. Yeah.
That is true, but yeah, and obviously the conversation at the bar. I think again it's
Yeah.
Lynch's sort of again he I think is the credited sound designer for this, and I think in that scene
Yeah.
the use of sound again I was thinking back to Little Emily and the Color of Rain, which is the film
Yeah.
that Dhruv and I were quite fond of out of when we were doing our catch
The
ups earlier this year.
animation, we were doing our quote unquote catch up of the Oscar nominees. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a really wonderful scene in that where the one of the main characters, she's cooking and she's recounting this experience during the war, and it
Mm.
uses sound design in order to convey those emotions. And this has got a very similar thing where when
Yeah.
the two talk about the war, the sort of noise drones, like the sort of background noise drones out, and you get these again almost kind of industrial sounds which call back to like that
The
war,
war.
like that. Even I was thinking even something like the ending of Benediction, where you get
Yeah.
that sound of this thing to come in, and it creates such a one like in that sort of dark moment, but it still creates such a wonderful atmosphere which is
Yeah.
so textured so wonderfully. I think
Yeah.
it's absolute standout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a particular conversation that they have because he has with a World War II veteran also, right?
Yes.
And he was an alcoholic, I'm pretty sure. Like he
Yes.
himself, Alvin, was an alcoholic, and one of the things he's been doing is, and he says that I'm cutting down, like I don't drink
Yeah.
anymore, something like that, right? So, and then he has one beer when he reaches his destination, essentially.
Funnily enough, he also has emphysema, which was one of the
Oh,
conditions that Lynch had, which Lynch passed to, actually was responsible for his death.
yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of you definitely see that kind of, oh, this is where I'm going kind of a
Yeah, actually,
reflection for
funnily
me.
enough,
And
actually,
yeah.
he's also, and I'm pretty sure this is a huge inspiration for this. He's a part of a film whose main star is Harry Dean Stanton. I think
Mm,
that was his final film. It's called
mm,
Lucky, and it's directed by John Carroll Lynch. I think which I don't know if he's an actual brother or cousin, something like that, but you can check.
mm,
It's got a very similar vibe of an old person trying to make through his days throughout. So it's called Lucky. It's pretty good from whatever I remember. I would like to rewatch it if nothing
yeah.
else to see. And it stars David Lynch also.
Okay.
So it's clearly, I guess, there's something at play with the straight story connection in that sense. But it's got a
Mm,
similarly sort of grounded feel to it. It's got a little. I remember it being a little bit more absurdist than this.
yeah.
Um, but it has a similar I would say this is an example of a very good American indie which
Mm.
we are
Which
fairly
is not
split.
Sundancey,
I
as
think it
is
did
Dhruv's
premiere at
worst nightmare.
Sundance actually. Lucky did, but like whatever it is, that's a
Yeah.
good example of a variant of American indie which doesn't want me to bang my head against the wall, which is most of them and most
Yeah.
Americans in general. But anyways, so. Sorry, you were saying. I'm in a very
No.
salty mood to like this a lot of Americans.
No,
But
you
anyways,
told me you'll bring your old man energy. You're just bringing your drama queen energy to this. This is
no,
on
no, this is
you.
old man energy only. Like not the Alvin Straight kind, just the more. I'm trying to think of a good example which isn't like Bamman Irani from fucking Happy New Year. But uh, sorry,
No, but
it's a G-rated movie. I'll need to beep this. Anyways,
no, but should we talk about the ending? Then we can get to the cast and the
sure.
performances in general out
What
of
to
that.
talk
Because
about the ending when the ending doesn't talk much at all?
no, but that's why it makes you want to talk
Oh,
about it so much,
I
right?
agree. It's
It's
wonderful.
so the ending I think comes out in this really sort of sweet manner because you're like Dhruv said, he's reached the town. He's have had his first beer in many years because
Mm.
so he essentially had a big fight with his brother. So they've not met each other in 10 years, and they were as close as it gets. And again, he says this really sweet anecdote of how they grew up together and how close they were to this priest. And eventually, he's sort of in the very last stretch when his lawnmower breaks down again, and you're
Yeah.
like, it's just get there kind of a thing. So another gentleman comes on a tractor, helps him out, and you see him sort of go down this sort of inclined path, and he sort of
Mm.
a little bit losing control of his tractor again, but he stops there, and then he steps out, and then there's just this moment where he calls out to his brother,
Whose name is
and
Lyle.
his name is Lyle, and
Yeah.
I am not joking. I just the look on Richard Franson's face. I literally started like crying my eyes out in
Yeah.
that moment. And this is before, up till here, you're just like, did he make it? Did he's Lyle? Because you also find out that Lyle was at a hospital and the priest was used to work with
He's
that
not been
hospital.
at
So
the church, right? I think for a while or something.
for a while, and he'd
Mm.
only seen him at the hospital for a night or something. After that, he didn't see him again. So you're like, is he there, is he not?
Mhm.
And then Harry Dean Stanton's voice comes out and he yells Alvin,
Mm.
and it's so magical
Mm.
of just, and it's again, it's stunning how short the ending is.
Yeah.
Like they, like, after, despite all the lingering that Lynch does all of the place, there is not a lot of lingering here.
Yeah.
Alvin just sort of walks up to the house. They say like three, four like half cut off sentences,
Mm.
and then they just sit down and they look up, and there's a lot about, I think there's an anecdote about how they used to look up at the stars together, and the camera sort of
No, but
pans
isn't
up to
there
the
a line where I think the is that the final line, or is it or is the final
no,
line
this is
that did
earlier.
because he says that and he says it in the sort of very and I because I totally understand the sentiment because a lot of
Yeah.
what I do is this also, so I relate a lot in that sense.
Yeah.
But he says the most sort of hurtful thing or most sentimental thing in a way which hides the
Yeah.
sentimentality of it. Harry Dean Stanton
Mm.
does, where I think he says that, uh, "Did you come all the way to meet me?" And he says it. I think even he has a softer tone than what and I'm not going to have to. I can't put clips. Okay, so this is
Yeah.
basically me having to do this. But anyways, Harry Dean Stanton is phenomenal in the 2 minutes he has. But he says this, and I think the camera just looks at him as he turns his face to the camera. Doesn't look
Yeah.
at the camera, but towards the camera.
Right.
And then, do we cut back to Richard Farnsworth or no?
I
Or
don't
do we
remember.
just
I think we
go
do.
up
And then you go up,
and
and
you
it's
look at the
the
stars? Yeah.
it's again the fact, the emotional, like, again, you're building this almost, I think, 2 hour film, I think it is.
No,
um
shorter.
I think must at least, I think, 1:45 to 2 it is, I think.
Okay.
um and you have this entire build up for this film, right?
One hour
And again, you've
50.
not one
Sorry.
hour 50, so it's
Hmm.
about two.
Hmm.
You have this build up, you have this journey, you have everything, and it's like, again, the ending is like 2 minutes. It
Yeah.
like wraps up real fast, but the emotional impact, because at the end of the day, all that is required. I mean, it's just hearing Harry Dean Stanton's voice. You don't have to
Hmm.
see his face when
Hmm.
he yells out his brother's name, and you get that
And I
moment
think,
of
but there's a
relief.
difference, right? See, if you end
Yeah.
even at that voice, it feels like it feels like you still don't give the and it's insane how good or how much actors
Yeah,
can
yeah.
do in so little time, of course, and which is why we've always talked about how a lot of times in other films actors need to often come through and fix up the scripting issues sometimes, but there are no
Yeah,
scripting issues here. I think it's more about it being concise. And I think if you just end at his voice and not his face,
obviously,
and
yeah.
just at Farnsworth's face, I think there's a different tone to the ending.
Certainly. No,
Yeah.
no, but I'm saying that is all that in the scheme of the film that was needed. So
Yeah.
the fact that you have but within that single really short interaction,
Mm.
you're able to convey so much and have
Mm.
that kind of like an emotional catharsis in that
Mm.
moment to me that is what is surreal
Yeah.
in the film to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's insane. I mean, I was just like, and as soon as I was like expecting maybe a little bit more of the conversation, and then we just, I think, cut, or is it this, or does the camera tilt up? I forget because I
Even
watched
I
it a month back, I think now.
yeah, it's been a couple of
Uh,
days.
I just said it's been a month, then you just said a couple of days. It's a very
I have a terrible memory, so we have established this already when it
Yeah,
comes to
that's
this
why you
kind of
need to
thing.
watch stuff again and again. Please do watch this
Indeed.
every New Year. You found a better film to watch every New Year.
I
Uh,
can't be, I mean, sir, you are the old man out of between the two of us.
Yeah,
You
I
go
really
ahead.
will be watching this more times than more than probably healthy. This is a comfort movie for me at this point. Very quickly it's become, along with weirdly enough, the Coen brothers, The Man Who Wasn't There. Imagine, The Man Who Wasn't There, and this being the comfort movie of a person, and First Reformed. But anyway, sorry, not to delve too much into that. Uh, Anyways, Chris is holding his hands in prayer slash despair. So, which
Uh, mental illness
link of
rings
first
rampant
reform.
on,
Look who's talking,
on,
okay? Anyway,
on Queen is dead. I
okay,
didn't say it's just you. It's
okay,
all of us.
okay. Anyways, no,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we can talk about the performance a little bit. We can talk about the absolutely gorgeous score, which is very uncharacteristic for Angelo Badalamenti. It's not his more jazzy sort of, I think he's
Yeah.
known for like jazzy stuff, especially from and synthy stuff, both I think, because like Twin Peaks
Hmm.
and Mulholland Drive and all, they have more of a operatic feel to them also when he
Yeah.
goes into them. Here it's like almost country music in some senses.
No,
It's
it's got that fiddle. It's very
Hmm.
rootsy American. I mean, I very embarrassingly do enjoy a little bit of country music,
Okay.
but it's got definitely, and it again, you pair that with the absolutely gorgeous cinematography.
Yeah.
You get these shots of just Alvin in front of
There are
those
lots of shots
fields.
of like again what you would now call like advertising shots of the farms also. Unfortunately, that's what they're called now. But in the context of the film, they actually like really look amazing in Alvin's journey. It's not
Yeah.
like oh look, I mean it's not like convincing you to buy the farm. Uh, in the same way, Malik doesn't convince you to buy a tree. But anyways, sure.
No, but yeah, the music is great, the cinematography is great, but yeah, I think the performances I think really is what sell the film. I
The
mean, we've talked
central
about Harry Dean
performance is just
Stanton.
astonishing. I'm like, who else? Like, no one else can do this. And I guess the whole idea of mortality plays into this for him
Yeah.
automatically, right? Because
No,
it
it's
is
also
one last
very
trip in many
yeah,
ways.
it's also the story is also very tragic because Farnsworth's health was quite deteriorating, and it's only
Hmm.
a year after this film that he would commit suicide.
Okay,
Because he sort of realized that it was only going downhill from there. So
sure.
it was literally a last ride for him as well. And it was also the last film that the cinematographer ever did.
Oh, Freddie,
Even though
Freddie Francis.
Freddie Francis, even though he
Hmm.
lived another 6 or 7 years,
Okay,
he didn't do a film after The Straight
sure,
Story. So I think the mortality was looming over the head of the production as much as, the
sure.
story itself. But yeah, that central performance is, I mean, it carries the entire film,
Yeah.
but I think even the bit parts you said about Crystal's character, I think Sissy Spacek,
Oh, she's
uh,
always been like again, like to me, it's like a casual sort of yeah. Sissy SpaceX, she's like amazing in everything. It's not a new thing. Like to me, it's one of those things. But
no,
no,
but
sorry,
she
thing. Hmm.
she brings such again, it's you said obviously the question of her speech impediment and her this thing, and obviously it plays into the story at large, but she brings again that naivete to it,
Yeah.
right? Like again, to me, that opening of her telling Alvin that she's just gonna go get groceries, and you stay outside with his neighbor getting like a tan outside, and then you
Yes.
hear the you hear him fall, and while she's inside the house, so it's just like time is just sort of going on, and like you have no idea what's happening. But then when she comes back and she has this look on her face, this is, what have you done to my father, or something like that. And she that naivety of hers cuts through those scenes so beautifully, and
Yeah.
that tragedy of her losing her family and her children and all of that is so you feel that, because SpaceX brings that kind of, without ever feeling again like a
Yeah, yeah.
fetishistic or
She
like a
has.
gimmicky kind of a thing.
It's
Yeah.
weird because I don't know if I should bring this in this episode, but I suppose I will. Why not? Like you can bring I dissed Forrest Gump. I can praise Beef, the new season that's come out, and we are recording, which tells you when we are recording this. So by chance this episode releases in 4 months time, so I'm just saying like this is an indication of when we did actually record it. No, my point is that I think she has one of those faces, like I think Carrie Mulligan has,
Hmm.
in a different register, of course, but like in the sense that the happiness will always convey a tinge of sadness and resentment. Not resentment in SpaceX case, but sadness definitely. And I think the way she's framed here also, like in a couple of the night sequences, especially, I think, of course, the biggest one is the one which is narrated by uh, Alvin, Alvin's character,
Yeah.
and you just see her, don't hear her at all in that sequence. But yeah, the idea of goodness, and it not feeling phony whoever wants to do that, just put Sissy Spacek on. The next Paddington film, can you please cast Sissy Spacek? Her and Sally Hawkins are like the brand ambassadors of this. They are just like, they can be the poster people of kindness, goodness, with Paddington, of course. Like, I mean, yeah. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I mean yeah, so that performance again, it's the details, it's the birdhouses. There's that kind of, again, it's surprising that, to me at least, it didn't feel gimmicky at all,
Mm.
in a sense of how she goes about it. But again,
Mm.
it's to me the characters around, when his even the guy who sells him the lawnmower, who's a character
Oh, yeah,
in
he's in Twin
Twin
Peaks.
Peaks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's got a really sweet moment
Mm.
where it's again, it's a bit part. It's less than 2 minutes, where it's
Mm.
just he's selling him the lawnmower, but he's it's that stubborn kind of thing. He's like, "What are you gonna do with this?" And he's like, "I made up my mind on it." So it's
Yeah.
how that
No, but
exchange
I think
happens.
the made, sorry, just to, I don't know,
Yeah.
like the made up on my mind. I was just like, if there is a visual metaphor to put for like age, or like for old age in general, that's literally the best thing you could have thought of, couldn't you? Like the whole film is about him moving at his pace in that lawnmower, and literally everything is passing him by. And I was just like, that is the best metaphor you could have selected for a film. Like, I know it's not subtle, but like, that is it. Like, that doesn't feel false. It feels like something which encapsulates what probably it means to, well, be, I don't know, but at least feel like you're, uh, like, at the point of mortality. Like, it just feels like it's, and there's so much of him looking back and just like looking back at the things which are passing him by, and then being like
No,
somewhat
there's a
curious,
really
but
sweet
yeah.
anecdote about that. So
Mm.
there's a scene where, or this shot where Alvin is going back, and it's at the very beginning of his trip. A big truck comes by and his
Mm.
hat flies off.
Yes.
Apparently, so David Lynch wanted the hat to fly backwards, and his
Okay.
production design, or I think Fisk or whoever, was like, the hat is going to fly forward when the truck goes by. And he's like, no, I wanted to fly backwards. I wanted to fly into the camera. So they apparently put up like 8 pulleys and like made a whole rig just so that Lynch wants the hat to fly backwards, so it'll
That
fly
works.
backwards.
I mean, the backwards thing works in terms of the metaphor that way. But
Absolutely. So it's
but
yeah.
yeah, like I was just like, I can watch this throughout. Like that one metaphor movie, you can, like, I know I've complained a little bit about films which are that sort of, have that very one idea and then just keep on sort of humming and hawing about that. But in this it works, and also because there's such diversity to the ways he interacts with the people on his way, that it just I never felt it be tiresome. I never felt it be sort of, phony. I think is the biggest thing it could have felt, or like mawkish, which are two
Yeah.
things which would have totally turned me off this entire thing. So, and those just never came into my conscious only. Maybe it's because the first sequence is so disconcerting. I was just like put on edge from then, and
Mm.
I just was just like, wait a second, why are people saying this is Forrest Gump? And then that sort of thought kept on. I just never felt like I did in
Yeah.
Forrest Gump, which is to turn the film off. So, that's the
Yeah.
whole thing. Sorry. Lots
No, I
of
mean, I
lots of
mean,
trees being caught by Forrest Gump. Anyway, sorry, everyone loves it, so it's fine. 1%.
I have to rewatch the film. I haven't seen it in a very
No,
long
but you've seen
time.
Lal Singh
Do
Chaddha,
you?
that's fine.
No, sir, I'm not watching that. If I
Oh,
watch it,
you've
I
not
watch it
seen
for
it?
Kareena Kapoor. I've not seen it.
Okay.
I've not.
No, but
But
apparently it's better than Forrest Gump.
is it? I don't. I
Because
mean,
it's got.
apparently, Amar Khan's performance is supposed to be
Oh,
quite
that
bad.
isn't, but I think Bollywood handles like that sort of
Yeah,
mawkish
that's true.
sentimentality a little bit better than Hollywood, I think. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah. No, no, I was saying even I was thinking back to like you're talking about very Lynch images, right? To me, there's two
Hmm.
images that one is the actual scene where they find out that Lyle is unwell.
Hmm.
It's this they're sitting, like you said, they're sitting in
Oh,
front of
the
the window.
window,
There's a
the thunder.
thunderstorm going on.
Hmm.
It's covered in blue, and I'm like, again, the very beginning of the film has these like details where you're like something's up,
Yeah.
and the other one is actually when the crystal sequence happens. I immediately thought back to the night scene in Wild at Heart,
Yeah.
which is the which is a terrifying scene
Night
where
scene.
there's a car crash and there's the
Oh,
character.
yeah, yeah. That you said feels totally out of like it feels like the film has taken a swerve. But I was like, that's the moment where I was like, oh, like
No,
I
I mean
didn't know this was.
I've come in my second, like in my rewatch.
Yeah.
I mean I still adore it. I just think it's a bit of
That
it's
has Audrey from
or Rayhorn from
Twin
Twin
Peaks.
Peaks.
Yeah.
But there is that that scene
Yeah.
starts, there's almost because again, the lady sort of the girl sort of turns up in the middle of the night and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. I was thinking back to that, so that something about his work still remains. Like you see that
But I think it's
essence
also
of it is so ever
I think in
present.
that sense, it's also the quietness because he
Yeah,
allows quietness to play out quite for a fair amount of time. I don't think he's insistent in like, resolving tension very quickly. So the whole conversation, like that conversation is so wonderful in how it transforms actually. And it's
yeah,
capped off by another symbol of like her tying the bonfire sticks, I think, right?
yeah,
That's or found family. Was it a found family thing, or was it like a family something to do with keeping things together, or like
yeah.
something?
It's a
He
family thing.
basically he tells her something about the sticks,
Mm,
and then she leaves the place after doing that. But anyways, no. But the way that conversation transpires, like I would say, you could probably teach that and be like, this is how you sort of take a conversation from one emotional state to another, and without it feeling like it's forced at all.
yeah.
So yeah, that thing helps a lot. But yeah, it's all credit to as much the writing. I know it's a Lynch thing. I know writing is very good compared to but I do think a lot of the triumphs of this film are very Lynch, in the
Yeah,
sense
yeah.
of how
Apparently,
it's
the
executed.
screenplay was very bare bones. It
Sure.
was, I think, mostly the dialogue is
Sure.
what the screenplay focused on. And
Okay.
you can definitely, I mean, again, the fact that it's got such a Lynch stamp on it, at least in the visual language,
Hmm.
is to me definitely proof that, as good as the writing may be, and that is not at all to say anything about the writing.
Hmm.
It's quite wonderful.
Hmm.
It's undeniably Lynch who brings it to life
Yeah, I
in
mean,
that
I think that's
sense.
the reason I think also to do this episode is to sort of very much debunk the whole idea of uh, Lynch as just dark
Yeah,
surreal, because I think that's just not true. Even in his dark surreal work, it's not true.
yeah.
And I'm surprised people think that considering one of the big things about Twin Peaks, and because Twin Peaks is the big thing for a lot of
Hmm.
people for Lynch, is the dichotomy between the good and like the light and the dark, and it's very clear and evident in Twin Peaks. It's not like it's
Yeah.
like hiding that. So it's interesting to me why this is not considered why this is considered non-Lynchian. It is
Hmm.
in the sort of very traditional sense, but if you like have an inkling of what Lynch is beneath the sort of effects of Lynch. This is as Lynch gets, like in that sense. And I mean, I think his naivety I have an issue with in something like Wild at Heart, not here at all. Wild at Heart is my problem, sure. But like my point is that that's where the utopian American thing I don't buy when he sells it to me towards the end. Here, the utopian feeling is underpinned by the whole mortality question. So to
No,
me,
but
it's not a.
that's the youth versus the like the old
No,
age
I do
question,
relate with
right?
the old people. No, so you are
Yeah,
the
and
young
I
person.
relate with I mean, I relate with both, but that zeal of youths that, and I think
Yeah,
that
sure.
in a sense there is that sort of great sort of fitting together of these two pieces, right? Because
Hmm.
Wild at Heart is that Americana from that the precarity, but also the um the again wildness of the youth, and this one sort of
It's straight
folds
in the.
straight.
Yeah, which you made a wonderfully horrible joke about when I mentioned to you that I loved the straight story. Please elaborate on that joke, Chris. And it was very funny, by the way, just to whoever's listening. When I told Chris that I loved this movie because it feels like an old people's movie, and then he laughed at me saying that, "Oh, of course you loved it," and turns out he also loved it as much. So fantastic,
Yeah,
Chris.
and I said that's because you are an old person, and I also happen to like the movie. You like it because you like old people movies, and I like it because it's a nice movie.
How wonderful! And what was the joke? Please elaborate.
I mean, good of it. No, I said he likes it because he's straight, and it's the straight story and not the gay story, which I had to take back immediately because Dhruv likes gay cinema more than I do, so
Yeah,
it doesn't even count.
exactly.
But
Anyways,
I
but
I had I mean
you
it
can now accuse Chris of liking the straight story.
yeah, which is fine because I mean in
Yeah,
this
because it is also
atmosphere.
centered on a man, and he's right. So yeah, that from that angle, Chris is showing me two fingers. I don't know.
Make of that what you will,
Yes,
ladies and gentlemen. No, I in this current atmosphere, I am allowed to make jokes on you. You are not allowed to make jokes on me. So
I mean we are anyways not
time and place.
we are not what is it? We are not legal, right? In any case, and our podcast isn't. So so
Yeah,
everything goes. It's fine.
everything goes not at me. Everything I make at you goes.
Sure, Chris.
Time, know your time and place, sir.
If
Come
that's
on.
relief for you, sure.
That's relief. How patronizing could you be in such difficult times, sir?
I know.
Anyways, we have episodes for lined up for Pride Month. If this comes out before,
It
we
will,
can.
it will.
I'm going to make so many jokes at Dhruv's expense in those episodes.
That I might actually bow out of those considering.
You're not allowed to, sir. Half
Why do
the
you
picks
need
are
straight
yours.
representation in Pride Month episodes?
Sir, allyship. There is no LGBT movement without allyship. Come
Oh,
on.
is it?
And you're anyway an honorary queer at this point. So
Okay,
that's
sure.
it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
anyways.
Anyways, I think this is it. I knew this is going to be a shortish discussion, so and we are glad actually, because that barely happens nowadays in any case. But it's short also because there's not much to elaborate upon in that sense. But that's I would say that's in this case at least the movie's charm is that its simplicity is it knows how to express its simplicity like
Yeah.
that well and in a way which never feels false. I think the statement I've repeated about 2 3 times, but it's what it is. It is what it is actually in many ways, but
Yeah.
this I mean in the most positive sense with the straight story.
Yeah,
um
there's definitely a charm to the difficulty. I mean, you've talked about how difficult it is to articulate your thoughts about Lynch's films in general, and
yeah.
generally it's because there's so much to them.
Mm.
I think here there's just enough, and you just you talk about it just enough, and that's it. Like there's
Mm.
no the film does its own job.
Maybe that's why it's not sort of, because it doesn't like automatically generate think pieces. But that's fine. This is the sort of cinema which I can recommend to people actually, weirdly enough. And be like, you know what? You want to watch a great film? You can watch this. and be very happy, and they won't like want to throw shoes at me after that. So it's one of those things which you can recommend to people, which is also nice. This is, if this was the state of popular cinema, I would be going to the cinema hall every day, is my point also.
Sir, in
But
your
it's,
dreams, sir.
I would, if it was the
No, no,
state.
in your dreams that this would be the state of
No, we know
the.
what the state is.
Yeah, so with that we've got two more episodes upcoming for the Lynch series as of now. Twin Peaks will be tackled when we have the energy to tackle Twin Peaks, if and when
Listen, I would
we have the
love to
energy.
tackle Twin Peaks: The Return. I just don't know how to go about it. I'll ask people who are better versed in Twin Peaks in general,
Yeah.
to help me with it if they can. But it's too much of a commitment. So I'm just. But listen, my whole idea was to cover Lynch's filmography, which I will do on the podcast, and then hopefully I can get to Twin Peaks somehow. So yeah.
Yeah. So but yeah, links are where you know to find them, and thank you for listening.
Links
Khatam.
are nowhere are there where you know how to find them. Sure. Uh, that's amazing. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. And
खत्म.
the host should say it, not me.
एक बार बोल दिया मैंने, आपने सुना नहीं.
Yeah, because I was still processing what you said before that. Anyways, how do I end?
करो सर खत्म.